It took an astonishing 764 days from the entry process opening to Cadillac being granted its place as Formula One's 11th team for 2026. That was finally confirmed on March the 8th, 2025, just 364 days before the first race of next year in Australia. With so much focus, for so long, on the political battles over the entry of the team that started life as Andretti Formula Racing before General Motors got involved and rebranded it Cadillac, the nuts and bolts of the team haven't been discussed in public a great deal. The race had the chance to visit the new team's Silverstone facility and hear from team principal Graeme Lowdon to understand more about the surprising amount of work that has already been done and exactly what to expect from the first startup F1 team to join the grid since Haas in 2016. Cadillac's Silverstone facility is currently spread across 6 buildings, although that is only temporary. Eventually, that will be rationalised to 4, a technical centre, production centre, a logistics centre and what's described as a small machine shop. But that's just one part of the operation. In the city of Fishers, just north of Indianapolis, a new facility is currently being built that will eventually house much of its production capabilities. Fishers is the base of TWG Motorsports, which operates the Cadillac F1 team, as well as the Andretti Autosport operation it grew out of. Andretti, currently running in IndyCar and Formula E among others, is still very much part of it, but this is a project that has grown significantly. In addition to those 2 sites, there's contributions from the 2 General Motors technical centres in Warren, Michigan and Charlotte, North Carolina in the United States. On top of that, Cadillac also has countless external suppliers and partners that will contribute technically and make it possible to design and build a car to race in Formula One. That raises big questions about how this will all fit together. After all, just a stone's throw from its Silverstone buildings is the new Aston Martin F1 headquarters, which makes a virtue of getting the whole team under one roof. That means what Lowdon describes as a flat management structure modelled on that used by NASA for the Apollo programme that put 12 men on the moon between 1969 and 1972.
And so in looking at, part of my job was to build a management structure that can result in a competitive Formula One team at the end of it. So, so you're right. I looked at, other, what I saw as difficult engineering tasks, and there's few things more difficult than sticking a man on the moon. And so it struck me that there's a lot to learn from the structures, the management structures that were used on the Apollo challenge, and a lot of that was generating an environment where there is peer-to-peer interaction. So engineers talking to engineers and specialists talking to specialists, and that's really what we've tried to do here and replicate. Now, obviously, only time will tell if it works. But hopefully it will. And going racing is different from moon landings, but it's still a highly technical challenge with absolute deadlines, and so as I say, time will tell as to whether that structure's been a success, but so far it seems to be going quite well.
To make this work, Lowdon has divided the team into 12 different offices. This is all about communication and ensuring that the usual problems of operating across different sites are avoided, just one of the big challenges faced by the team. The target is to have 600 staff members working by the time of next year's Australian Grand Prix, of which around 2/3 are currently in place. Another 50 or so will subsequently join. While that number is far short of the 1,000 plus of F1's biggest teams, this is achievable because much of the manufacturing and production of components will be outsourced, at least initially. As more of that is gradually taken in-house, it is expected over time the team's full complement, including all departments, will ultimately pass the 1,000 mark. Currently, new staff are joining up at a rapid rate while the team works on building up its facilities. To put that into context, when Cadillac first held its weekly staff meeting there were only 3 attendees, but now it's almost 400, with a live link up to the US to ensure staff there are also looped in. The logistics building is temporarily housing model making facilities, meaning it's a hand-to-mouth operation, but one that is capable of doing serious amounts of work. The design office is probably the one that looks the most complete, with technical director Nick Chester's team set up and working flat out. But plenty of lower profile work has been done, for example achieving the 3-star FIA environmental accreditation demanded by the sporting regulations, as well as the hard grind of building up all the different business units and associated bureaucracy. Some of the numbers involved are mind-boggling. There's still much to be done, and there is significant building work still required before the Silverstone buildings are complete and fully operational next year, with work ongoing even once the season starts. Cadillac started work on its 2026 Formula 1 car in the middle of last year, long before its entry was confirmed. In fact, it began with a 25 car, given the initial entry window was for this year, with early design work underway in mid-2023. Technical Director Chester, who has a vast amount of F1 experience, notably with the Enstone Renault team, joined back in March 2023, while Pat Simmons, formerly Chief Technical Officer of F1 itself, started as Executive Engineering Consultant at the start of this year. Another ex-Enstone man, Rob White, started last November as Chief Operations Officer. Cadillac has had a 2026 car in the Toyota wind tunnel in Cologne for some time, and only fell under the aerodynamic testing limits set down in the regulations from the 10th week of 2025. That means a huge amount of CFD data, 5 petabytes to be precise, has already been built up. Several prototype monocoques have been made, the latest described as a proof of concept in terms of design and external manufacturing capabilities that has passed all the required FIA crash and load tests at Cranfield in the UK. However, these were not overseen by the FIA, and the definitive monocoque that is currently a work in progress will have to formally pass those tests. As Cadillac is fully focused on the 2026 car, it's ahead of what would be a normal schedule for an existing team in many areas, but the key final steps, such as signing off the testing aerodynamic package in mid-November and the preparation work on the car, will be closer to a conventional schedule. While the priority at first was building up the design side of the operation, as that requires the longest lead time, work has accelerated on assembling the race team itself. What's dubbed the Race Ready programme means that there's already been a complete simulated race weekend running in parallel to the Spanish Grand Prix held in June.
For the Barcelona Grand Prix, we simulated the entire Grand Prix race weekend. From Thursday onwards, we did a seat fit in the simulator in Charlotte, and then we had about 50 colleagues between the US and the UK, working together on every session. So we mirrored everything that we would normally do over a race weekend, from strategy meetings to reliability meetings. We did every session in the simulator. We looked to improve performance right through the weekend, and we simulated the race as well. And that kind of activity, I think, is really, really important for a new team coming forward. So, all of these things contribute. Even in the smallest way. Obviously, doing an exercise like that helps to prove things like the software systems that we're using, but it also helps you get used to hearing people's voices. And what we don't want is to go to Melbourne and feel as if it's the first time we've done anything at all.
The simulation was so comprehensive that it even included notional driver media interviews, so the times they wouldn't be available to the rest of the team was factored in, and even included setting up an email system to mimic the one run by the FIA for various crucial bits of bureaucracy. In addition, the team plans to honour both the 2-week August shutdown and the mandatory 9-day shutdown that starts on December the 24th. This is on a voluntary basis to familiarise itself with the process, as it's not bound by the shutdown regs until next year. Cadillac has yet to sign any drivers for 2026, but has plenty of options on the table, and experience is one quality the team is looking for. Most likely, Cadillac will sign one of Valtteri Bottas or Sergio Perez. Bottas is understood to favour this option over the possibility of joining Alpine. For the second seat, Zhou Guanyu, who Lowdon has been involved in the management of, and Red Bull's Yuki Tsunoda are appealing options with F1 experience, but while Mick Schumacher is also a contender, he's well down the list. Jack Doohan, Paul Aaron, Mercedes reserve Fred Vesti and Aston Martin's Felipe Drugovich are also in the mix, but none tick the significant experience box. The chances of an American like Colton Herta has faded. But as Lowdon explains, signing a driver isn't Cadillac's top priority.
Yeah, we're out of sync with the other teams, which kind of makes it easier. It means we can spend a bit more time understanding the attributes that a particular driver can bring and measuring them against, what we need. Normally you're in a competitive environment. Sometimes you can't take long to make a decision because someone will go to another team. And we're not in that position. There's a good list of very, very capable drivers that we can interact with and put a team together with. So, we're quite lucky from that one point of view. Another way of looking at it is because we're out of sync with the other teams, there are certain drivers who probably we would be interested in who might not be available. But as I said, lucky for us, the marketplace is populated with a significant number of very talented drivers that we could choose from.
Cadillac will use a customer Ferrari engine and gearbox initially, but General Motors has committed to building what it calls an all-American power unit. This work will be done by a separate business unit being set up by the GM Technical Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. The exact timeline for this power unit making its debut is unclear. It has FIA approval to come in for 2029, although that is not entirely certain, given question marks over F1's power unit regulations. On the current schedule, the new 2026 PUs, which feature a close to 50-50 split of electrical and V6 power, should run for 5 years, but this could yet be shortened if there's a change of direction. When it makes its debut, that could be considered the point where the true Cadillac works team arrives in Formula One. The inevitable question is whether Cadillac really will be ready for the 2026 Australian Grand Prix. Lowdon is adamant that there's no doubt whatsoever that it will be.
That side of the challenge, and this is not blasé or underestimating the task. I'm just confident with the people that we've got on board. I've worked with a lot of them in the past. It is a huge job. It's a massive undertaking. But it's achievable, and and then the real difficulty is being competitive, and that's where we'll need to just keep raising the game from our side. We can't affect what happens with other teams, but we can affect all of the things that are within our scope. So success at the end of 2026 for us will be looking back and saying we maximised everything that we possibly could, and then we'll see where it comes out in the wash.
Based on what we've seen at the race and what we know about the work being done, there's no question that this will be the case. How competitive the car will be is another question, but the expectations inside the team are sensible. Nobody anticipates being better than last, given Cadillac is going up against 10 well-established teams. It's framed as realistic short-term expectations, but with the long-term ambition limitless. But it won't be until pre-season testing starts in late January that we start to get a picture of where Cadillac will really stand for its first season.